Well, I tell a lot of stories, and this is one I'm probably some of you have heard before. Again, it involves me and Nancy and a lot of other people. I even made some notes here of people's names because I keep forgetting people's names anymore. And now I think I'm 180 years old or something like that. It feels that way anyway. This story took place when Hillary Clinton's father had passed away, and the Clinton family and a number of friends were going to come to Scranton. The funeral service was going to be held in a little church right around the corner from Actors Circle's home, Providence Playhouse on Main Street. Not on Main Street, on I guess I can't remember the name of the street. Doesn't matter. There's a little church right on the corner of Short Street. And I'm in the theater with a couple of other guys. It's raining out. Saturday morning, we're building a set. Nancy and Peter couple with umbrellas come in the door and they say, aren't you going to go and see the funeral service right around the corner? Because Hillary Clinton and her husband, Bill Clinton, their daughter, and a bunch of their friends are going to be there. Don't you want to see this event? And I said, no, we have to build this set. Besides, I'm not much of a Clinton fan, which I'm a Republican. Nancy was a big Clinton person, which is fine. So she and Peter left. And after about 15, 20 minutes, I figured maybe I should take a look and see what's going on. I heard everybody's feelings. I walk out of the front door of our theater. I look down the street, and all I can see is a sea of black umbrellas. I maybe saw 30 black umbrellas, and they disappeared down the street toward the church. I didn't go down there. Just from the theater, I could see this. So I figured I'm not going to go into that crowd. I went back into the theater, and when the set was finished, or for that day's work was finished around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I went over to Warren Cox's apartment. He had invited me and Nancy and anybody else that we wanted to drag along up to his apartment. He was on the second floor over at the Cox Funeral Parlor on Main Street in West Scranton, and it was a good view. You could stand and look down from his parlor at Main Street, and we knew that the funeral procession would come from the church to the cemetery in West Scranton, so we could see the president, not see him, maybe see his hand waving, whatever. So he and I got a drink, and we're looking out the window, and no sign of Nancy, no sign of Pete, anybody else. After about 45 minutes or so of waiting and wondering where they were, we see the police cars coming, 2 or 3 police cars, and then a couple of limousines, and then a car that I assumed was the car that carrying the Clinton family, and I thought I saw the president's hand a little bit out the window. And after a couple more cars, there was a big van, and in the very back window of the van, there was a woman who looks very much like the back of Nancy. I recognized the hat and the sweater, and a man who looked very much like the back of Peter Couple. Again, but I had seen them a couple hours before. I could see what they were wearing. And, Warren and I were like, what? What's going on now? Well, how does it get in that car? What's going on? Anyhow, I finished another drink or two. I went home, walked in the kitchen. There was nobody home. And the phone rang. Picked up the telephone. It was Wendy Lowry, who recently passed away, as did Peter Couple about a year ago. Wendy Lowry's a good family friend and always used to do the box office for us at the theater. And she said, Louie, why is Nancy with the Clintons? And I was like stunned. I didn't have an answer. I didn't know myself what was going on. I said, Wendy, where are you calling from? And she said, Cape May. I said, well, how do you know about this in Cape May? She said, well, my daughter Lisa was standing over in Cooper's restaurant parking lot, and she saw them all arrive because I guess somebody had said that the Clinton group was going to go to Cooper's restaurant. And Nancy and Peter were with the Clintons and all these other people. And I said, oh, my God. So I don't have an explanation, but thanks for letting me know. We hung up. And an hour later, Nancy walked in the back door, looked at me, and said, you'll never believe where I was today. I said, I know where you were today. I just don't understand why you were there. She said, well, let me tell you. She and Peter joined the massive umbrellaed crowd, the crowd down, then they went all the way down to the church. But because they were a little tough people, my wife and Pete Couple, they were tough. They would elbow their way past all these people and got down right to the gates. And guess who's at the gates? They had a lot. They were going to allow some of the neighbors in to join, to see the funeral service. Now, Nancy's not a neighbor of this church. Peter Couple is not a neighbor of this church, but they know the guy doing the gate. It's P.J. McGowan, who was on the board of directors of Actor Circle. So we had an inside track there. And he says, come on in. And yeah, it's okay, one in. And he closes the gate. He had left a few other people in. They went into the church. They were allowed to sit a row or two behind the Clintons, which Nancy was very thrilled about the whole thing, I'm sure. Saw the whole service. And when it was over, the Secret Serviceman said, those of you who would like to come to the cemetery, follow us. And Nancy and Peter, of course, they're not going to say no. So they go out, and it's still raining. They get into their the van that they were in. And by the way, the other people in the van was so famous I'll never come up with their names. I know Blood is one part of the name, Blood something. They were Hollywood producers of some sort, and they were friends of the Clintons. And the only thing that they did with Nancy and Peter was to look at them and say, are you friend or family to the Clintons? And they just sort of mumbled something. I don't know what they mumbled, like, please don't arrest us. Okay? Anyhow, they rode in the same van down Main Street. And that's how we saw them in the back window of the van, me and Warren Cox. And they go to the cemetery. It's still raining. And they're led to a tent that has been set up with chairs next to the open grave. In the crowd in the rain, among many other people, was Jim Connors, who was, I think, still mayor at that time. And he knew Nancy and Peter, and he was stunned. He was like, why? How? Why am I in the rain? And you're not. You're going into the tent. Anyhow, they sat in their chair in the tent. They listened to the service. And then the Secret Service said, all those of you who are coming to Cooper's, follow us. And they got back in the same van and were driven to Cooper's restaurant, where they did not sit down and eat in the inner private room with the friends and with Mrs. Clinton, but Mr. President Clinton sat outside in an area where there was just anybody could be there, and he was telling stories, and he had Secret Servicemen around him and so forth. So Nancy and Peter got to rub elbows with the President of the United States, and it was a lifelong thrill for her. I was just stunned. And that one of the funny things about the whole story is that I found out about it from Wendy Lowry, who was in Cape May. But that's a typical day in the life of Lou Bisignani and Nancy Bisignani. That's it.